Hey everybody, and welcome to Dominion Cards, the video series where we take a strategic, in-depth look at various cards from the board game Dominion. Today we're looking at Patrol. This is a 5-cost action card from the second edition of Intrigue, and it says +3 cards, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, put the victory cards and curses into your hand, put the rest back in any order. So this is a Smithy variant. It's a terminal draw, gives you 3 cards, and it has some bonus while costing 5. So in the Smithy video, we talked about how its bonus was that it cost 4 instead. So there's a lot of cards with this template throughout the game across all of the expansions where they cost 5 and they draw 3 cards terminally. Now, because we've talked about terminal draw in general in the Smithy video, I do recommend that if you want to learn more about the value of drawing cards and so on in general, I do recommend you go watch that video. I'm not going to repeat myself in this one. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to focus on what Patrol brings to the table, specifically all of this other text underneath, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, put the victory cards and curses into your hand, put the rest back in any order. So that's sort of the bit that we're going to be looking at mostly in this video. So first of all, how much is Patrol actually drawing for you? So it always draws 3, but technically you can actually get up to 7. If all of the 4 cards that you looked at were victory cards and curses, then this will draw you 7 cards, which is incredible draw. Like, drawing 7 cards, that's like library at its best, right? Like, it's very, very rare that you see a card that will draw you that many cards. That is a huge amount. But how likely are you to actually draw 7 cards? Right, let's be honest here. You usually don't have that much density of these bad, useless cards that often. In addition to that, it's the cards that it's drawing, victory cards and curses, these are usually going to be useless cards that you don't get to play. So it's drawing you a lot of cards, but not ones that you actually get to do anything with a lot of the time. Now, something else that hurts Patrol's ability to take advantage of this extra draw is the fact that the starting estates are pretty bad cards. You're usually looking to get rid of them as soon as you can. And in a more traditional game, you're not going to be adding any victory cards into your deck until right at the very end. So this means that in a lot of games that you play, Patrol will only ever be drawing you 3 cards, right? You're not going to get that extra draw because there is nothing that's viable for it to draw. Now, late game, when you're adding, say, provinces into your deck, normally there's the problem that comes with adding victory cards is, of course, they are these useless stop cards that hurt while you're still playing your turns, and they're only useful once the game has actually ended. It's less bad adding them into your deck with Patrol around because you might be able to essentially skip over them in one shuffle because you just draw it for free. But that's not guaranteed, right? They can still show up in your starting hand. When you draw 3, you could still draw them then, and then you reveal, like, non-victory cards, and so, in that case, it's sort of hurting you. And Patrol's benefit, it didn't get a chance to be used. But, you have the possibility to make them less, right? So they hurt your deck slightly less with Patrol sometimes. Now, there are exception cases, so multi-type victory cards are a type of card that Patrol can draw for free, but they're actually useful, playable cards. So Intrigue has 3 of these, Mill, Nobles, and Harem. When the victory cards are playable, that's really good because A, it means that you're more likely to have victory cards in your deck throughout the game, so that Patrol's actually getting that draw, but also because obviously you're drawing cards that are actually useful, right? Nobles, for example, it's a village. It's not a very good village because it doesn't draw, but if you get to draw it for free, then, well, not only are you more likely to have a village after you've drawn Patrol, so you can then play another one, but, you are getting extra draw out of Patrol in that way, and you're sort of making up for Nobles' inherent disadvantage that it doesn't draw. So Patrol could be really, really good with these sorts of cards. If you can get a good enough density of these in your deck, like maybe you've got Ironworks and Mill combo going on, you can get quite a lot of Mills. You can get Patrols that draw quite a lot. But there actually aren't that many of these cards outside of Intrigue. So, while Intrigue has 3 of them, how many others are there? Well, there's Island in Seaside, and then I don't think you see another one all the way until Adventures, where there's Distant Lands. So you have Dame Josephine, is it? Which is 1 in a card stack of 10, and then they've got Castles. That's kind of it. I'm sure there's another one I'm forgetting, but there's really very, very few of these multi-type cards that are specifically also victory cards. So you don't, outside of like intrigue-only games or just base and intrigue, as you add more and more expansions, you are less likely to see these combos with Patrol show up. Right, much, much less likely. There's so few of them out there. Now, it doesn't just draw victory cards. Unusually, it also draws curses too. A lot of cards that combo off of victory cards usually don't combo off of curses as well. So it's slightly unusual that Patrol also gets to draw curses as well. You don't see this on very many cards. So that's pretty neat. Right? So, like how adding provinces late game, they're less of a problem when you've got Patrol. The same is also true of curses being added into your deck. You might get a chance to draw them for free, in which case that shuffle, it didn't hurt you in terms of the fact that it's a stop card. But bear in mind that curses are still very bad cards, right? Patrol is not a counter to them. It doesn't mean that, the curses in my deck, I can ignore the fact that I have curses because I get to draw them for free. This is not really... it does that to a little extent, but not enough for it to basically totally counter curses, right? You are still going to draw some of them when you draw +3 cards sometimes, or in your starting hand, or other cards will draw them. They will still get in the way. And of course, they're also negative points, right? So you really don't want them. Now, with Patrol, it is a lot easier to pair up your curses with other cards that trash from your hand. So, stuff like Chapel. That's because Patrol reaches into your deck, looks ahead, and pulls them into your hand for free. So you get to search through much more of your deck and pull them in more easily. In addition to that, a lot of curses put curses into your discard pile. That means that a lot of times you know where they might be, at least for the first time you encounter them. So if you're already at the stage where you can draw your deck, you may be able to leave a Patrol play until quite late and actually guarantee that you pull that curse into your hand. And if you get to then say trash it that turn, that means the curse didn't really do anything. As long as you can set that up, which you won't always be able to do, it can. If you already have your deck under control, then you can help you to nullify the curses to some extent by using Patrol as your draw. Now, you still, of course, want to give curses to your opponent when you can. It's very, very strong cursing your opponent a lot of the time. And sometimes your cursor will also draw. So Witch from the base game is a good example of that. But there's also Torturer in Intrigue, which is another drawing cursor. What you find is that when you have these cards is that because they're already drawing your deck terminally, you might not really need Patrols that much once the cursing is done, because you've already have draw cards in your deck. Maybe not so much as Witch, because it's not very good, but that's going to be more important with cards like Torturer, for example. So even when you have curses flying around, you may find that Patrol, you don't really have a good opportunity to add it to your deck just because you already have draw by the time you would get around to actually picking up a Patrol. Now, it's not just drawing. Patrol looks at cards and doesn't necessarily draw them as well. We call this deck inspection. So it looks at 4 cards, and any that it doesn't get to draw for free, you actually rearrange the order and then put them back. So some cards benefit a lot from deck inspection. We talked about this in the Sentry video, so I don't really want to go over these again in great depth. But some examples, like Wishing Well from Intrigue, you have to try and guess what your second card is. From before you've played it, the second card down. Patrol lets you look at what it is and set it up, so you can guarantee Wishing Well draws. Similarly, Herald wants to hit certain cards, or there's other ones like Magpie, for example, or Vassal. Lots and lots of cards out there that really benefit a bit from deck inspection, and Patrol gives you some opportunities for deck inspection. But bear in mind that although 4 is a lot and lets you do things like set up double Herald plays or whatever, or big Vassal chains, the actual number of cards that you get to rearrange is going to be reduced if you pull any victory cards or curses. So although normally you'll be looking at 4 cards, could be that you're only looking at 3 or 2 or 1 or none if you get particular draws. But, you are drawing those victory cards or curses, and drawing tends to be the better effect. So it's not always a problem that you get to look at less. Bear in mind that it doesn't guarantee that you get to take advantage of certain combos. So it could be, for example, that you have 2 patrols and they end up towards the end of your deck, and you don't get opportunities to actually look at the inspection. Or maybe you do, but you don't have any Wishing Whales in your hand. And because Patrol is also a draw card, it's drawing cards off your deck, and so it's leaving less cards in your deck to actually inspect on, right? Like maybe you want to set up like Magpie to draw treasures, but you play Patrol and it draws you 3 treasures. Well, now your Magpies just have less opportunity to actually, take advantage of their benefit of drawing those treasures for you. So, keep that in mind. I mean, generally drawing cards is what you want to be doing. So the fact that Patrol is drawing you cards, maybe it doesn't matter that you're not also getting off Wishing Well plays, but bear in mind there is a little bit of like inconsistency with these sorts of combos that you got to watch out for. Now, rearranging the cards on its own can still be useful even without particular combos. So, for example, if you reveal villages and other patrols, you get to move those to the top of your deck. Then if you have a cantrip, like, say, a poacher or a merchant or something, you might be able to then draw that village, and now your turn gets to keep going, right? This sort of ability to smooth out your draws, it makes you less likely to randomly fail because the order was wrong. I mean, it's only going to go so far because it only looks so far into your deck. But it can be really nice in that sometimes Patrol, you might be less likely to dud when you are using Patrol as your main draw. One thing to watch out for, Patrol looks essentially 7 cards into your deck from before you play it. So when you play it, it draws 3 and then it looks at the other 4. If looking at those 4 cards causes a shuffle, because you need to shuffle to draw more cards to look at them, then you can trigger a shuffle early, and that can sometimes be a problem. Bear in mind that the cards that you want to reveal, none of those will get discarded back into the shuffle. They will all actually go back on top. And what you've done then is you've made a shuffle with everything in your discard, but those cards that you're revealing do not make it into that shuffle. So you get one less opportunity to play those revealed cards. And if you're drawing your whole deck anyway, maybe you don't care. But sometimes when you're not, and it's taking you a number of turns to get through your shuffle, this can have a minor negative effect. Like I talked about triggering shuffles and all that in the Smithy video. So just bear in mind that it's way more likely to happen with Patrol, which could be bad in certain situations. Now, while certain cards love deck inspection, there is actually one particular exception case with Patrol, and that is cards that want to trash from your deck, like Sentry or Lookout or Doctor. So normally with those cards, having some other deck inspector is really nice because it lets you set up and rearrange the cards so that you can trash the ones that you want. The big problem with Patrol is that estates and curses, which are usually the highest priority of what you want to trash, actually get drawn into your hand. So if your only trashing is something like Sentry, it can actively work against letting you trash the curses because it's drawing them into your hand, and Sentry cannot trash from your hand. Now, bear in mind, you can still trash coppers and ruins, which are 2 other forms of junk that you often want to get rid of. And it's really nice for using like sentries to trash your coppers when you've got Patrol. But really, what you usually want to be doing is trashing the estates and curses. And Patrol can anti-synergize with that to some extent. Now, admittedly, they're not as bad if it's drawing them into your deck because it didn't really hurt you during that shuffle, but it does mean that they'll still be there on a future shuffle, whereas they wouldn't have been if it left them on top of your deck and you got to then specifically trash them with Sentry. So keep that in mind. One other minor thing to talk about here, so Remodel as a card, normally you don't want to be trashing your coppers and curses into estates, right? This is a pretty poor use of Remodel a lot of the time. But with Patrol, what you get to do is you get to trash the coppers into estates, and now Patrol can start drawing those estates for free. So you can sort of partially offset the the stop card element of copper by turning it into an estate and then drawing it with Patrol. And that's not always going to work, but you can, to some extent, help start cycling through your deck more quickly if you do this. Now, of course, for curses into estates, well, if it was a curse, Patrol would have drawn it for free anyway. However, it does mean that, turning it... Normally, I guess the problem is that turning a curse into an estate, normally it still leaves you with this stop card in your deck. But now that you have Patrol, well, it wasn't going to be a stop card all of the time. So turning it into an estate, it didn't leave you better off, but, it's not leaving you with stop card junk in your deck, right? Your deck is still potentially going to be drawing still a lot more easily. So you can turn the curses into estates more readily, I think, when you have remodel. Doesn't mean to say that this is still necessarily some really strong move, but bear in mind that this is something that you can do. It's also way easier, of course, to pair up the curses with your remodel if you're drawing a load of them with Patrol. Now, Patrol, because it has this opportunity to draw these potentially useless cards into your hand and draw a lot of them, this can be really nice with cards that like you to have a large hand size. So when we look at sifting or filtering like Cellar is one that wants you to start with a lot of cards in your hand before you play it to get the most out of it. And the fact that the curses and the victory cards are no use in your hand is not a problem for a card like Cellar. You actually want to have a load of bad cards in your hand so you can discard them all and draw stuff better. So Patrol in some decks is going to be really nice for using various sifting cards. Crossroads. This is an example of a card that draws more the more victory cards you have in your hand. Well, again, it likes you to have a big hand full of lots of victory cards, and Patrol can help you get there to get some massive draw out of Crossroads by drawing all the victory cards into your hand. And largely, just as an example, Artificer, you discard a number of cards from your hand, it lets you gain a card costing exactly the amount of cards that you discarded, and Patrol, again, by drawing cards that you otherwise wouldn't be playing into your hand, you have more cards to discard with Artificer. So these are just some examples. There are more of these, but this is just to try and demonstrate this general concept that, Patrol, even if you're not playing the extra cards that it draws, some other cards get to take advantage of the fact that you just have a lot of cards in your hand. So keep that in mind. So the final thing we're going to do, how does Patrol compare with other similar cards? So let's say Patrol isn't the only Terminal +3 card that is available. Would you pick Patrol over any of the other ones? Well, Patrol's sort of only okay. So the deck inspection, the drawing of victory cards, this is nice, I will admit. Deck inspection is a nice effect when you essentially get it free, tacked onto something else, right? It helps you move those villages closer to the top of your shuffle. It helps give you a bit of reliability. It makes it easier to add victory cards to your deck, or makes them not so bad in general. But there's a lot of other Smithy variants out there that have much, much better bonuses than the bonus that Patrol offers. So even in Intrigue itself, you've got Torturer, which is Terminal +3 cards, and that's just a much, much stronger card than Patrol. So Patrol sort of loses, even in its own expansion, when you think about opportunity cost with other similar cards. Even in Big Money, where you think this might be super great, because it cleans all the victory cards off for your next turn, so you have a good turn next time. That is nice, but bear in mind that Patrol isn't even the best Big Money enabler in Intrigue. So Courtyard in Intrigue is just way, way better for Big Money, even though it actually draws slightly less cards because of its top decking effect. So Patrol is fine. Draw cards tend to be good in these treasure-based decks like Big Money, and Patrol is fine as an option to pick there, but, there are better ones out there. At the end of the day, the deck inspection, the drawing of victory cards, is only going to do so much for you, and it's not necessarily that exciting. So Patrol is an alright card, I think. That's all I can say about it. It's decent, I like it, but you're mainly using it because you need a terminal draw card. And sometimes there are combos like other victory multi-type cards or cards like Wishing Well where you really get to take advantage of this. But outside of that, which is going to be the most common case where you don't have these combos, it's fine, right? It's just okay, basically. So that's Patrol. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move over to the online client, and we are going to generate some boards that contain Patrol, And we're going to assess how good Patrol is on these boards. So what do we have here? So we have 2 villages. We have Shantytown and Nobles. Now, Nobles is pretty nice with Patrol because it draws it for free. Is there trashing? Yes, there is. There is Steward. So we can get clean. We have 2 villages. We have Patrol and we have Bridge. Well, I know what's happening here. Well, this is clearly going to be the Bridge Megaturn board where you are going to be using Nobles and Patrols to draw. Now, Nobles is quite expensive, but we have got Bridge. We've even got Conspirator, which we might be able to do. But what we're going to do is we're going to open with Steward. We're going to trash down. I guess I'm going to pick up a Silver just because it's non-terminal to go with Steward. Maybe. Do I go for Shantytown to draw more instead? Maybe I just go Shantytown Steward and I don't care. No, I think I need the Silver at some point. So I'm probably just going to open like Steward Silver. Maybe it's fine to open Steward Bridge, actually. Or Steward Conspirator. I mean, not really. I'd still want to be buying... If I get a collision, I still want to be buying like another Silver on the turns where I play Steward. Yep, so I'm going to trash down. I'm going to buy Patrols for draw. I've got some... The villages themselves don't draw, but one of them can be drawn with Patrol, which is quite nice. And I'm going to try and play as many bridges as possible. Now, it could be quite hard to draw your deck because both of the villages, most of the time, they're not going to be drawing. But you should be able to start pulling in enough Nobles, and the Nobles, of course, can also be used for draw if you need to. And I think this game's going to be won by whoever basically plays the most bridges. So, yeah, Patrol is crucial here. It is your main source of draw that you're going to be using. The alternative, of course, is to use a minion stack. I guess I should consider this. I don't like it as much for playing bridge. Now, the fact that the villagers don't draw is nice for the minion stack, but I think I prefer to take advantage of drawing lots of cards with Patrol. It seems like it's going to be quicker to get that set up than minion, I think. And minion can have some problems with drawing these other cards in the wrong order. And also, like, it's... I mean, it says +4 cards, but the problem with Minion is that when you then want to start adding other draw, like Patrol or Nobles to it, which you might want to do if you want to play a lot of bridges, it's not going to be so great. You are going to struggle. I think Patrol is just better in this board, even though Minion is an attack. It's not an attack that I think anyone particularly cares about here. So yeah, so I think Patrol, very, very good on that board. That is a good example of a Patrol board because there's Nobles to combo with it. So what do we have here? Well, straight away I see Chapel. I'm drawn to this. So we're trashing the Chapel. We have Village as a village. We have Patrol for draw. Alternatively, we've also got Laboratory and we've got Minion as well. So the big question that I see on this board is what in the world are we actually doing when we draw our deck? So we can workshop to gain these things, but there isn't actually anything else to do. There's no plus buy. So I think... Do we trash down? Would we use Patrol as draw, or are we good enough with Courtyard? Courtyard's very cheap. You'll be trashing everything with Chapel. You might have more opportunities. I'm happy to pick up a Courtyard on 2. I think if I have another 2, it will go fine with Village. I will actually even better because I've got Workshop. I can Village Courtyard, and I can just play these a lot, and I can use them to draw my decks. I can get a lot of them with Workshop. On 5, maybe I would prefer a Laboratory. I think I don't bother with Patrol here because there's just better things to do. And eventually, I just want to buy... I want to end my deck with enough money to just consistently buy Province. And I'm going to be using Workshop to do that. So I think I open Chapel and possibly Workshop. I think I just go straight for it. And I don't really care about any of the 5-cost cards. I just want these things. Is Masquerade a problem here? I don't think so. I think I can get enough of these useful components, and then maybe even I can throw in Workshop and pick up some Silvers, and I just look to draw enough to pick up a Province. And yeah, I don't care. I mean, maybe I will pick up a Patrol if I have 5, but I think I prefer Laboratory. I think I can draw well enough with the things that I can pick up from Workshop that I don't care. And the only reason why that works is because Chapel thins me so much that I don't have to worry about the fact that Courtyard isn't spectacular draw when you're drawing a lot of them. I might pick up a Patrol at some point. Maybe I'm going to have enough density of victory cards. Like, is this game going to go close enough that we're going to go into an extended end game. Like, we have 2 provinces left. Neither player wants to pick them up. So we go on to drawing duchies, and patrol's going to be really nice in a deck like that. So maybe, actually thinking about it, this game could be close enough and fairly routine enough that we do want to do this. And then I think Masquerade starts to become a problem if we have a high density of victory cards. You can workshop a Masquerade, and you can start hoping that your opponent starts giving you these, and that might give you enough of an edge to pick up the last province. I think Patrol's okay here. I'm not really looking to generate a lot of money, but at some point I'm probably going to start having 5. And I think maybe I will get Patrol over Laboratory, because I'm going to have a lot of villages. It's so easy to get villages, and there's Throne Room as well. Like, I might even pick up Harbingers just to throne them, but honestly, I'm probably better with Laboratory. I don't think a minion stack doesn't feel very good here. I don't think. I guess it has a particular combo with Masquerade to shuffle your starting hand and give you less options. Or at least your opponent's starting hand, sorry. But I think it's too hard to get a lot of minions. You've only got 1 buy per turn, and Workshop's just going to get you a lot of this other useful stuff. So, yeah. So I think maybe I get some patrols here. It seems okay as a card. Well, straight away I spot that there are 2 victory card combos, which is really nice. So we have Patrol. Do we have any villages? We have Throne Room on Sentry or Merchant. Now, we've got Masquerade for trashing. We've also got Sentry for trashing. Patrol isn't going to be able to trash the estate anywhere nearly as effectively as Masquerade. But I do still like Sentry, just because I can throne it. Oh, but we've got Nobles. Sorry, if we don't, we've got a village. It's not Throne Room is the only village. We do have Nobles, of course. Yeah, okay, so this... there's no plus buy. So this is a bit awkward. So we want to get thin quickly. We want to open with Masquerade. I'm probably opening Masquerade Silver. I want to be buying these expensive cards. We are going to try and draw Patrol and Nobles, I think. But it's so expensive. But even though we can only get 1 card per turn, using Nobles for draw, and potentially even some Harems. I might get Harems over Conspirators, thinking about it, or Merchants. If I've got the money, maybe I just prefer Nobles. I don't know, but I can only get 1 per turn, so at some point I've got to get some money. Conspirator is probably just as likely to dud as Harem. Like, if you start with them in your opening hand, you may not be able to play either, but you can throne Conspirators. If we get some Throne Rooms, I prefer having Conspirators. Otherwise, Harem giving us points is really nice. Because we can only gain 1 card per turn, having the points is very nice. Do we mine silvers into Harem? That's another option. I don't think we do. I don't like having a mine. We've got to buy the mine, and then we get to upgrade stuff, and I don't want that many silvers. But that is an option on this board, and usually, if we've got the action space and we're willing to spend a buy on it, we could be upgrading silvers into Harems, and then we get to draw them with Patrol. I think Patrol is good on this board. We are going to be using Patrol. We are going to want to have 1 or 2, but we only really need 1 or 2. I think we're picking up a bunch of Nobles. I think I might do some Throne Room Merchant, Conspirator, maybe. It's actually difficult to know the value, but I think the extra points, because this is a single gain board, there's no way to gain extra cards. I think the points are very relevant on Harem and Nobles. So I think I prefer to go that option than trying to play like a Conspirator chain. And I certainly am not going to be getting a whole ton of Merchants. Throne Room is nice here, but it's a bit awkward. I do like Masquerade for trashing, so I think I open Masquerade Silver, and I look to buy a lot of 6-cost cards and some Patrols. I think that's what I have to do on this deck, and that's the extra points from these are what's going to give me the win over any other strategy. There is a difficult decision in terms of when you stop buying these and you start to go for provinces. I guess you always prioritise province if you get 8, because you haven't got time to do anything else, and it's just going to be slightly janky. So what do we have here? Well, we have 2 villages, and we've got Patrol. So we have a way to draw our deck. We have Market for buy. We have Workshop to gain us all sorts of villages, and Poachers and Conspirators. So we can generate a lot of money here. Now, the big problem that we have is that the only trashing is Replace. Now that's okay because we can turn... I think we actually leave the estate in our deck and we start using a replace. We get it on our first 5 and we start trying to turn coppers into estates just so that we can draw them with patrol. It doesn't feel very good, but I think the workshop lets us pick up enough villages that it's okay to do that. I think here I open... I think I want... Do I want a silver? No, I think I actually start with... Do I start with a poacher? I can always replace it into something else later, like a 5 cost. So I think I open with poacher on 4, and then maybe I get a workshop on 3. I think I want a lot of this stuff, but I think it's easy to get too many of it too quickly. I actually need to get my draw up first. But do I still just get the replace first? Maybe I have to get the patrol first instead of the replace. Also, it's really nice with replaces. We turn coppers into estates. Not only do we get to draw them, but we curse our opponent as well. That's actually really good. I think I'd go for the replace first, and I start junking my opponent with curses. I think that's what I do. So I really want to hit 5 early. So I'm going to go poacher, and I guess I'm going to take a silver. I will need some money at some point. I'm going to look to get a replace on my first 5. Then I'm going to start trying to draw patrol. I need a workshop to start gaining a lot of villages. And then eventually we're going to get some conspirators and we're going to get some markets. And we're just going to build up our deck while cursing our opponent. And we will just see, we'll play it by ear how much we get to build our deck. Eventually some of these piles are going to start to run, possibly. But it may only be these 2. Maybe patrols will run, maybe not. Maybe conspirators will run. I think eventually this game might end up on a 3 pile. Like, you will eventually get to a stage you can buy provinces. Maybe it will end on provinces. I think it will get close to either game condition and people will start being forced to province. But yeah, I think patrol sort of is the only draw on this board, so you've got to use it. And we actually get to take advantage of the victory cards by turning our coppers into estates, which is really nice. Replace loves gaining victory cards, so replace it. That's a particularly nice combination there. And let's take a look at this last one. So we have mill and harem, I notice straight away. Sadly, though, we don't have a village. So we have Masquerade, Steward, and Sentry, all for trashing. But what do we do with our deck once we've done this? This is the main problem. Like, how do we actually play this? There's no plus buy. So, what's the value of something like a minion stack? Well, the 4 card hand's really bad for our opponent. I think... I was just saying, do I just do like money masquerade? Or do I steward to trash down, but then what? I think in the absence of doing anything here, I'm just going to be playing money masquerade. I don't think Duchy Duke will be able to compete. There's no... Like, you can do well enough with a Masquerade Big Money that it might actually beat Duchy Duke. I don't think I want to Duchy Duke. And if your opponent tries it, you playing a lot of Masquerades is going to be a problem for them, actually. Possibly. So, yeah, I think this is just Masquerade Big Money. I don't think there's anything else to do on this board, sadly. Although there are these 2 cards. The alternative, of course, is Patrol Big Money. Is that better than Masquerade Money? Maybe I start with a Masquerade and then I shift to Patrol. But then am I really just going to be buying harems? Maybe I do. Maybe I don't bother with Mill, because if I draw that with Patrol, it's a dead card. But maybe I can start with Masquerade, then go into Patrol and harem, and I take advantage of the fact that this is giving me points in a game where otherwise there's only 1 game per turn. Maybe that's useful. Maybe I focus on trashing coppers first and Masquerade, but when will I ever hit these price points is the problem. So I think I open... Do I open Silver Masquerade? I don't like the mill so much. I mean, I guess it's fine if it gets drawn dead with Patrol, but I'm not so happy. There's less junk that I want to discard, I think. So I think I open Silver Masquerade, and eventually I might shift into Patrol and harem, maybe, in the hope that those are enough extra points combined with provinces to win, and hopefully that beats someone going Duchy Duke. I think having the Masquerade is nice if your opponent tries to Duchy Duke, possibly, but you will also get rid of a bunch of junk. They will still have a bunch of coppers. Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm actually now slightly less convinced. The alternative is a minion stack. You trash down with Steward and then you play a minion stack, but you need a lot of minions, and I don't really like the sound of that very much. So in this case, there's nothing great to do with that. So okay, I'm sort of in two minds as to whether or not Patrol with Harem is good enough here. But man, what do you do with Duchy Duke? That's the only other thing I think that would compete. You start off with like a Masquerade and then you go Patrol, Harem, but yeah, I'm not super happy about it. Do you ever bother with a Sentry? Probably not. I think Masquerade's good enough, and if we're playing big money, we don't care if we have a few coppers around. So there you go. So Patrol was pretty useful in a lot of these boards, but it was mostly useful for draw effect. The fact that there are a number of boards where we got to take advantage of particular combos is basically because these decks have a high concentration of intrigue cards. As we start to add other expansions, you will find that Patrol's particular combos show up way less often, and at that point it is just basically a draw card. But in Intrigue, it's pretty good because you get all of these sorts of combos with it, even Wishing Well in the same expansion. So yeah, Patrol, it's absolutely fine as a draw card. I like it. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but it works well enough. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this is useful for you, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.